What happens after about a week? Do they just look the same, just harden? Do they
Um,
turn white?
it's
Does
good.
mold grow faster than anything else?
It's a good question.
Let's see if I was a kid. This experiment
All right, hello and welcome to Corner Comics, your mostly weekly comic book reading club. I'm your host Burkoff, aka Matt, and I'm joined by my friends every week. We share a few issues with each other, and then we get together and talk about those issues. Gentlemen, how are you doing this lovely Sunday morning?
Prime. I am Prime.
Manuel?
Said it like Optimus as well.
Yeah.
I am optimistic.
See what you did there.
Optimistically Prime.
It's just a kind of Prime, but
Where can everybody find you guys on the internet?
Well, you can find me at the newly revamped blacksuperherofan.com, where I am working to publish something at least every couple of weeks. I would love your input, but you can count on seeing me there. You can also find me on Twitter at Walrus. That's at WALLRUSS. And to you.
Nice. You can find me on the Instagrams at EM_MAN_YOU_ take a breath EL. So that's phonetically Emmanuel. And haven't done a lot of work on this, but it is a work in progress. EmmanuelTheStory.com.
Nice. All right. And if you're watching, listening, you have any thoughts on the comic books that we're talking about and that we've read, or maybe you've read them too and you have different thoughts than what we have, you can reach out to us at cornercomicsofficial@gmail.com. I would spell that out, but Corner Comics is right up here. So just put that at gmail.com. And we're working on a website as well, right, gentlemen? Hopefully.
Correct.
Coming soon, yes.
So yeah, the website should have the show notes and then just random musings by each of us about comic books. So right now it's cornercomics.burkoff.com, but we'll probably have its own domain by the end of the day today. So, all right, we've got 6 issues. I decided to go with 2 in sequence because I desperately tried to find the one X-Men story that Emmanuel will enjoy and will finally bring him around to my fandom. And so I chose X-Men, or the Uncanny X-Men number 136 and 137. And these are the final 2 issues in the Dark Phoenix saga, which is probably the height of Claremont and classic X-Men. Russ, which 2 issues are you bringing today?
I bring Jupiter's Legacy number 1. This came out in 2013. It's from Image Comics, and I chose this because this is coming to Netflix. And of course, you should read before you view. And I also chose Hawkeye Freefall, which I believe is a limited series. And it just begs the question of, is Hawkeye really a worthwhile superhero? And I'd like to see what you guys think. Emmanuel?
Nice. I brought to the table DC's Static Shock. This is issue number 1, the 2011 run. This is his reintroduction into the DC Comics. It was a short-lived series, but I hope entertaining nonetheless. The second issue that I brought was Niobe. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. She is Death. It is from the artist. Let me actually go to the show notes here. Sheldon Mitchell, Daryl May, Jang Lee, and I'm going to butcher the name, Hyun Taek Nam, and then story by Sebastian A. Jones, Amanda Stenberg, and Joshua Kozai. Cosine. That's it.
All right. So I guess we'll get started. I wanted to wait to do mine to the end, but we'll start off with the Dark Phoenix Saga. So let me transition here so everybody can see the first cover. The Dark Phoenix Saga, yay! So
The original printing.
no, not the original printing. This is the trade paperback. Yeah. So the interesting thing about this is like the way that Claremont wrote. He had multiple storylines that he started, and so like this may be issue 136, but going all the way back to like issue 115 or whatever is when all this stuff sort of parlayed into what would ultimately culminate in the Dark Phoenix Saga. According to Marvel, that is issues 129 through 137 is sort of like the full arc. I chose the last two mainly because you can kind of start anywhere, but it definitely ends on issue 137. Yeah, John Byrne, classic arts, Claremont, very verbose. He's definitely a fan of a lot of dialogue. What are your guys' thoughts? You can start on the first issue, the second issue. At some point I'll transition to the next cover.
I'd
Emmanuel?
like to go.
Yeah.
So I like the first issue better than I liked the second issue. The first issue was I'm really trying to pinpoint what it is I dislike about X-Men. And this issue, the first issue that you brought up, I didn't hate. It wasn't, I didn't get that disdain that I normally get from reading. However, the second issue, it kind of started to creep up. What they're basically telling the same story. I think, I don't know, because the first issue was set on Earth, the second in space.
Yeah.
There's sort of a detachment there, the Shi'ar Empire. That I was never interested in the Shi'ar Empire, ever since they introduced it. And reading it as a kid, I'm like, why do I care? Like, put them back on Earth and have them fight politically, have them be hated. Like, that's their wheelhouse. So it's not as if I hate space issues or space comics, because some of my picks have been space comics, and some of you guys' picks have been space comics, and I've loved them. So that's not the issue. I think it's the Shi'ar Empire. I do love know and love the characters. Jean Grey, Wolverine, Cyclops, Beast. Everyone's in character. Everyone is how I know them to be. There's no variation. There's no change, which there's good and bad with that. I got to say, overall, the art, beautiful. Loved it. It's exactly what we come to expect from an X-Men comic, quintessential X-Men art. The dialogue, the story, it was good. It's nothing that I would write home about, but it was good. This is definitely X-Men at its finest. I think you couldn't have picked a better issue to sway me. But my bar is set very low for X-Men, so no.
Just didn't do it, damn it.
Just didn't do it. I like the relationship between Jean Grey and Dark Phoenix. I would have been more interested in seeing that internal dialogue between her psyche and Dark Phoenix, but that's just me nitpicking. It was good because it showed what everybody else saw, her personality change and like all of that, the manifestation of her powers. It was good, and I love the heart behind it.
Okay. All
right. So I'm going to have a challenge separating the two books in what I want to say. So I'm just going to view them as one story. First of all, always loved John Byrne. Can do no wrong to me. Is he the best of all time? No, but I have really never seen any John Byrne art that I did not like.
Yeah.
And so here, I think he captured the X-Men well. I feel like everyone looked how they should look. There's a lot going on in both in space and on Earth. And I got to feel like all the detail was there, both in its magnificence and its eternal issue. So all of that is good. So in that, so I took sort of offense. I wasn't sure. You wrote something about the pinnacle of classic X-Men. I'm like, you can't just give it the title. So I'm saying, any reason to say no? Art wise, no. Yes, this is everything is clear. Everyone is in proportion. John Byrne delivered as he always does on his art. So art wise, yes. Now, story wise, I feel like if you have an emotional connection to these characters prior to, that it's just delivered on that emotion. If you didn't have that though, which it'd be impossible for you, Matt, to even separate yourself from. But if you didn't have that, did this deliver? So I tried to look at it in those terms. I felt like there was a lot of thought bubbles. Wolverine was thinking way too much.
That's Claremont. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why is Wolverine thinking so much? Wolverine is a filthy animal. He should have been just slashing. I don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? But he wasn't doing any of that, right? But all the other the things that they thought were in alignment with, again, who I know the character would be. So the things that Wolverine thought are things that you might think Wolverine might think. All of that is there. So true to the characters, check. Now, I did find some things I didn't like. Because we've seen all these books that happen after this, right? Why is it that when Jean Grey dies, there is no battle?
I honestly didn't think about that until you mentioned it. Um,
Right?
yeah,
Where,
she just kind of vaporizes.
right? But you know she survives later, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, so that's the interesting thing. I don't think if you were reading this when it originally came out that you knew that she was going to come back or that they would do that. You know, they sort of retconned it. If I remember correctly, Jean Grey in this story is not really Jean Grey; it's Madeline Pryor, right?
Oh, wow.
No, I thought
Or the
Madeline
other way
Pryor.
around.
No, I think Madeline Pryor wasn't created till after. Later, after this death, Madeline Pryor was created so that Mr. Sinister could get the sperm out of Cyclops and make a baby. Right? That's the whole purpose because he didn't have Jean Grey anymore. Right? So I think Madeline Pryor was invented way after. I'm willing to bet good money on that. That's not Madeline
I
Pryor.
feel
He
like
met Madeline Pryor while he was mourning Jean.
okay, maybe they brought Jean Grey back and then retconned it again as it wasn't Jean Grey, it was Madeline Pryor.
Challenge that statement.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. But anyway, um, I think when this was originally published, like it was a big deal that Jean died. I think
Yeah.
because I was reading an article or watching an interview with Claremont, and he was talking about how um, the editor Jim Shooter gave him a bunch of shit for killing Jean because he didn't know that they were going to kill Jean. Apparently, they went to I guess the guy that was just under Jim Shooter, who was the editor in chief of Marvel at the time, and they thought that he had gotten approval from Shooter to do this, and they just did it and they published it and it was already out in the open, and Shooter's like, what the did you guys do? Like, you just killed Jean Grey. So
And Gladiator is basically Superman. Why didn't he beat everybody up at super speed and be done?
yeah,
Why do we have to have these no-name Shi'ar Smasher? Really? Why do we have to have no-name Shi'ar characters fighting the X-Men individually, trying to match them power for power, when Gladiator clearly outclasses Cyclops in strength? Could have taken Cyclops, Colossus in strength, and could have taken them all out at super speed and be done, right? Done, right? Why is it? It's like if Superman was there and the X-Men were trying to stop them, can they stop Superman? No. What power level? What does adamantium do against Superman's flesh? Right? What does any of these powers do against Superman? And so you got Gladiator in there, and you make it so his clothes get ripped up. Like fighting Colossus was one of the hardest things he ever did, even though he reigned supreme. Are you kidding me? Colossus is here, Gladiator is up here when you can't see my hand. There's
Right.
no way it works. So those two glaring things I had an issue with, right? And I understand people do that in movies. They try to find a way to make it so that everybody's power is brought in. I just feel like they didn't do it well there.
Okay.
Quintessential, because I can't come up with a better run or series prior to that, I will allow it.
Okay.
I will say that this is how did you say it? Pinnacle of classic X-Men.
Yeah, in terms of modern X-Men, I think there's other stories that people would hold maybe higher
Yes.
in higher regard, but in terms of like, yeah, I mean, all the stuff that Claremont wrote and what is sort of from 71 or 72 is when he started, all the way up till maybe 90, 92, from when he left. I'd say this is probably the pinnacle. After this, it sort of just, all these stories sort of weave in on themselves, and you lose characters and gain characters, and
you lose them.
yeah, interestingly too, the not necessarily with these two issues, but the Dark Phoenix saga in general, what Marvel considers the Dark Phoenix saga canon, is the introduction of Kitty Pryde and the introduction of Dazzler. This is the first time that those characters ever show up.
Nice.
So, anyway, any final thoughts on these two issues?
Say it, Emmanuel.
Still not an X-Men fan.
With that, we can move on.
And on that note, I will probably give up trying to bring in X-Men to get Emmanuel converted.
But this was a good try. This was just supposed to bring. I just don't think. I think Emmanuel just needs to go watch the animated series and let that be his X-Men.
Okay. I will pose a challenge to both of you. If you can find a classic Justice League story that's like the Dark Phoenix saga,
Okay.
I want to read that. I want to know what would be like the
On Infinite Earths.
Well, I was thinking Infinite Crisis, but I don't know if that's the story that you should bring to the table. I don't know.
Story, then that's Superman's death, right? There's all the what's the story? Because here's the thing, classic X-Men, but that's not all of Marvel. Now you're saying classic for all of DC.
No,
classic Justice League.
Justice League specifically.
I could go a lot of different ways. I could go with the Bwahaha Justice League. When Batman knocks out Green Lantern with one punch.
Okay.
Right. I could go with after all that trash talking. I think that's a certain point in time is very classic, right? If you want to go before that, I could go with some JLA JSA crossovers.
Okay.
That hit up, grown Robin, who never became Nightwing, in his ugly costume. All these other characters, legacy characters. I could do that. There's a few things I could do, but to capture classic is kind of hard.
Shelve that idea. Russ, what's your first issue?
All right, my first issue of the day is Jupiter's Legacy. This is a Mark Millar book, and Mark Millar did a deal with Netflix to bring all this stuff there too. Netflix has even published comics exclusively from Mark Millar in that agreement, and this series is coming to Netflix. It is its own universe, as Mark Millar stuff usually is. And before I get into what I think, I'd like to hear what you think.
I'll go first. Since when the hell did Frank Quietly learn how to draw?
I knew he was going to have something to say about him.
God damn. All right. So his run on New X-Men was horrible. It was some of the worst artwork ever. This one's not bad. I actually enjoyed the way that he did the characters and the faces. I don't know if it's the years between when he was doing New X-Men until this book, which was 2013 or 2014. I don't know if he just got immensely or exponentially better over those years, or if maybe he didn't have quite the time crunch. So maybe he wasn't on the same type of deadlines that he was with X-Men. But this, if anybody asked me, point out some Frank Quietly artwork, I would point to this rather than some of the other stuff he's done. I think it's done really well. The characters have a lot of personality, but it still has that weird quality to his work. You know, the eyes are spaced a little too far apart, but it's his style. So I enjoyed that. I like the idea of these. It's almost like Watchmen in a way, right? The superheroes, and then they have their kids, and there's some good political dialogue and some good dialogue in terms of what are the implications of being a superhero? What type of responsibilities do you have? I think this is going to work really well as a Netflix show. Towards the end of the issue, with the daughter, they talk about the space cocaine that they've got. I don't think they ever show her doing it, but it's implied that she did do some of the cocaine and then falls through the table.
Yes.
Having no experience with Jupiter's Legacy, I would say that this is mature Game of Thrones style, Justice League Watchmen, and it'll probably do really well on TV. In terms of following the book, I might paw through a couple more issues just to see. I'm really curious about the character of Walter. I thought was the most interesting. So I guess the brother to the main superhero.
Mhm.
Is it Samson or Solomon? I can't remember what his name is. But yeah, overall, really good book. I enjoyed it.
Emmanuel.
Nice. I enjoyed it. The art, I'm going to touch on the art as well. He has rounded lines. I don't know how else to describe it other than rounded lines. Every Frank Quietly illustration is very notable. He has a signature look, and this is definitely his signature look. It is improved upon, as Matt was saying. It is improved upon, but it's definitely noticeably him. Now, the story itself, I really, really, really want this to succeed. Hopefully, they don't go the Powers route and have like a really good season and then completely cut it off. Hopefully, it'll be more like HBO's The Watchmen, the most recent version, or The Boys. I'm really enjoying those. So if this could follow along with that same tone as it is in the comics, this would be great. It has a lot of political commentary. Normally, politics and superheroism doesn't mesh well, but this one does. There's some really great questions about overstepping their bounds. What's their obligation? With great power comes great responsibility. So if you have this great mind, do you have a great responsibility to influence politics? Or should you leave that to the regular humans, the ones without, superpowers? So that's a really good question there. I really want to see that fleshed out on television or even in the comics. But I like this issue. This wasn't even on my radar until you brought it up. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, couple things. One, this is a mini series, and then there's a Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2. That's its own series. It takes place after this. So there are a series. So you can get all this down like in a graphic novel if you want, right? Or read the 5 issues of the series and get your complete story. But there's other Jupiter's Legacy series take place in the universe that sort of give context to the story. So it might be worth your time if you like it at all to continue. That way you will at least be ahead of the series and you're like, oh, that's how they chose to go with that character. Or that's how they chose to go with that story. So I've always thought everything Mark Millar writes is supposed to be on TV and in a movie anyway. I think he writes it with some vision in his head, and I think he does that well. You can go all the way back to Hit Girl and all these other sort of things. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, even though it had artists that you normally wouldn't like.
Yeah. All right.
All right, go ahead.
I was gonna say next issue.
Next issue is Hawkeye Freefall #2. Once again, I will reserve my comments until after I have heard yours.
Manuel.
Sure. The art is typical what you would find in a Marvel issue. Nothing spectacular, nothing super. Uh, Now, Clint Barton's character, it's different than what we know from the MCU. His character has always been sort of goofy, but not necessarily with the one-liners. He doesn't quip as much as, say, a Spider-Man, or definitely not as much as a Deadpool. But he's pretty witty in his own right. He is, in my opinion, he's always been kind of bland, not really all that interesting. This is a story of him kind of going the Ronin route, or is he? It's. I find myself trying to care, making myself care more so than that. I I was a bit intrigued. There was a couple of questions raised at the end of the issue, so it did its job. There was intrigue incited, so there's that. But the beginning and the middle, it was more so like, okay, this is a story that is kind of a throwaway comic. But towards the end of the issue, I genuinely cared, genuinely had an interest because of the mystery about it all. Um, like I said, the art, the story, it was it was good. I enjoyed it for what it was. I wouldn't pick up issue to find out what happens. This would be more of an issue that I would ask a friend if I knew they were an avid reader of Hawkeye or they were following the series. I would ask them what happens, and then we have a conversation based off of that. But it's not necessarily something that I would go and buy joyfully.
All right. I guess I would have similar feelings as Emmanuel. I really enjoy the art. I think I like the art a little bit more. It's got some great personality. It borders on cartoony, but it's not too cartoony. It still has, an action feel to it. I really like the writer that's doing this book. So Matthew Rosenberg has done his run on Uncanny X-Men before Hickman took over. I really liked, and I thought that he did a great job. It's interesting to see because, like Emmanuel was saying, like Clint Barton and Hawkeye, that character is not really the Spider-Man quippy, funny guy. And this takes it to the next level and says, well, what if the character was like that? How would he act and whatnot? And to that extent, I think this book does that well. But now I just want to see Rosenberg write Spider-Man because I think that he would do Spider-Man way better than Hawkeye. And this is specifically with this issue having Spider-Man in it is like, hey guys, here's my audition to do Amazing Spider-Man. I'm kind of curious to see where it goes. I like the idea that Hawkeye or Clint Barton can be a different character. So the Shogun character I think is really interesting. I think the aesthetic is better than Hawkeye. And maybe we'll see, what happens with that character down the road. But yeah, some great moments. The dialogue that he has with the pharmaceutical rep when he does, or the pharmaceutical CEO when he doesn't know that he's the CEO of the company. He's like, "Give that guy a raise." On second thought, maybe not. Maybe you make too much money. The exchange with the computer hacker or the guy that's like monitoring the cameras of the bad guy hideout. He's like, "Well, I knew it was you. Of course it's you because you looked exactly the same way 2 years ago when you did this move, type of deal."
Right.
Great exchange. And then like that final panel of the look on Hawkeye's face, like, oh, he did know it was me. Yeah, overall, I thought it was a great issue. Sort of a fun ride. I think this full run is 6 issues, if I'm not mistaken.
And I believe only the 5th one is just recently come out.
Right. So it's about to end. I think it'd be worth it to maybe pick up at Barnes & Noble and just peruse through the trade. And then if you liked it, absolutely purchase it. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Okay, so yes, I thought it was too cartoony. So you got me on that. Agree. I just feel like see who he is in the MCU. That's a wild card. Who he
Yeah.
is in the comics, I feel, has always been trying to measure up, always falling short,
Mm.
Yeah.
pretty much consistently in the history of this character. There were moments when he was wearing that costume in the past where he seemed to move a little beyond. He has everything he needs to be successful. He doesn't even have to use bow and arrows. He can put anything in his hand and he can use it. He clearly knows how to fight in a martial arts type manner. He has been trained by Captain America, and yet he's a bumbler and he's not all that interesting. And I was wondering if you might find him interesting here. So thank you for your input. But I guess the jury is out and we'll see.
There is, I don't know what medium this was in, but he was talking to, oh, this is a comic. He was talking to Spider-Man, and they were patrolling. I really want to cite the issue, but I can't offhand. They were on a rooftop and they were just surveying the landscape, and Hawkeye was just shooting and just practicing. Like he was shooting it at a particular spot and getting it every time. And Spider-Man was quipping. He was saying, like, why do you always do this? Like, do you ever stop? Like, of course you're great. So he was like, this was Hawkeye's statement. I fight with a literal god, a super soldier serum, a super soldier. He was just naming all of these fantastic people that he fight with, and he's a guy with a bow and arrow. Like he can't be good. He can't be just great. He has to be at the top of his game all the time.
Yeah.
The pressure, like all of that. That makes for a great character, but I have yet to, and maybe I'm wrong, but I have yet to find a comic that illustrates his burden, his pain when it comes to that, and he's only human.
Yeah, this issue doesn't really speak to the burden, but it does make light of it when he has the exchange with Luke Cage, right? He's like, can you sit down real quick and stop bouncing bullets off? Or I don't know, I don't remember what the dialogue is, but he's like, okay, for all the people here who are not bulletproof, could we?
Right. Right.
And then at the end of that, he's like, well, I gotta go collect my arrows. that was hilarious, right?
He's not rich.
Yeah. So it was enjoyable for sure. He's just how do you do Hawkeye in a good way? Like,
and this is what I want, because I feel like it is the writer's burden to make every character that they attach to writing
right.
enjoyable. Otherwise, where's the talent? You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
feel like a good writer to do that, because we collectively may not be the writer. It may not be for us, right? But if you look at Daredevil, who really has no real offensive powers either, right?
Yeah.
And yet Daredevil can knock it out of the park every time. Why not Hawkeye?
And Hawkeye should be compelling.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Hawkeye should be compelling because he's essentially Oliver Queen without the millions and without the Lian Yu, without that torture. But yet still he's driven. He's as driven as Hawkeye, as capable as Oliver Queen, as Green Arrow.
Yeah.
There should be something there.
Yep. And so anyway, I don't see that here. I just see more of the same bumbler. Like he's just, you're a third stringer and you're trying to stay first string, and your villains are telling you, dude, you're an Avenger. Say there's a Avenger. Yeah, but it's only Hawkeye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're trying to be, I feel like that's his drive, is his ego, right? Because his comrades in battle don't say anything bad about him in battle, just when he goes off on his own and does some stupid stuff to try to prove he's worthy, right? So I think he needs therapy.
Yeah,
that would be a good comic.
There you go.
Hawkeye in therapy.
All
right, moving on. Emmanuel, your first issue of the week.
All right, DC Comics from the New 52. There has since been a rebirth after the New 52, but this was the New 52 in 2011. Static Shock issue number 1. A little bit of backstory about Static. He has been this isn't his first introduction into DC Comics, but reintegration, I should say. What are you guys' thoughts?
You better go first, man.
All right, okay. So, yeah, Static is from Milestone, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Right.
My main sort of interaction with the character or exposure to the character has always been the WB series, the WB Kids series, Static Shock. I think this issue does a good job of, like you said, reintroducing the character and sort of merging what the Milestone Static was with the Kids WB Static Shock. The costume design is great.
All right.
The artwork is a little more action, oriented and not so cartoony, but it still has those elements to it. Overall, I thought it was good. I failed to see how Static is a really compelling character on his own. I think that he works well in a group of superheroes. And yeah, I don't know how long this run lasted for the New 52 Static Shock. I think it was like, was it 12 issues or something like that?
I want to say
Not sure.
8.
It was only 8 issues. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. The cameo with Hardware was cool. I think they could have done a little more with it. The artwork's amazing. Those are kind of my thoughts.
Okay, so this, I do like the costume. The artwork for me calls back to the Static that was in the original Milestone comics. So I felt like it was a bunch of an homage to, if you read Static, if you skipped over the animated series and read Static, I think it brought some of those elements back. I think Static has everything to be compelling that Spider-Man has. Static is smart. Static has a dedication of the responsibility. He has his own set of powers. He uses his intellect to fight crime. I think anything Spider-Man has, this guy has, but more. So I think if you can make a good Spider-Man book, you should be able to easily make a good Static book.
Okay.
Yeah, give him his own story. There is nothing lacking character-wise. He is capable. He has a family. He is well-adjusted. He has a benefactor in the superhero universe. He works at Star Labs. What, I'm saying, his power set enabled him to I have a thing about, and I'll probably write it in the blog. There are 5 things that every superhero needs. He has all 5. One of them is he can find a way to deflect bullets, right? Because if you got a kid superhero who can deflect bullets, he's gonna die, or she, right? Because right? It's like, get out of here, kid, right? So he has a way to deflect bullets. He has a way to affect things that are not up in his vicinity, right? And he has an agile mind, which he shows even in this comic, a way to solve problems.
Yeah.
Right. So he doesn't have. It's like, for me, Miles Morales Spider-Man versus Peter Parker Spider-Man. Miles Morales Spider-Man is much more well-adjusted and has a good system backing him. Good stories that come from that. I think Static has all those things here. That being said, wasn't really a fan of this. I didn't find the story that compelling. I didn't find what made me want to read another issue is that I am already predisposed to follow Static and everywhere he shows up, because I am like a fan like that. But if you are not a fan like that, I don't know if there's enough here for you to say you should read more, right? I feel like they're treating him more like they also treat Blue Beetle. Not a bad story, just not a great, you don't need to follow it. You know what I mean? You can if you like them already. But then I think one of the reasons why this went away is because Milestone and DC aren't playing well together right now. Not that there's animosity, but there's some issue that would cause, if you'll notice, in the last few years since this comic, no Milestone characters have showed up anywhere in DC Comics.
Yeah.
So there's be resolved there. And maybe they go back to their own universe, which I wouldn't be mad at. But we will see. I've been watching the website. There's nothing new and updated. I've been listening to rumors, but none substantiated. All in all, I want, and I have also a pet peeve. The name of the show was Static Shock. People call the character Static Shock. His name is not Static Shock. It's just Static.
Yeah.
And every time he was like, and what about Static Shock? That guy on it? No, Static Shock was the name thing. His name was just Static. So I'm really trying to have him shake that whole shock thing. But I found I wanted to like this book more than I actually did. It wasn't terrible at all. It has all the elements there. It was just, I was missing something. I don't know what it was because there was action. So it's really hard for me to articulate, but maybe it's the conversation of, I didn't really care enough about this story as much as I cared about the character.
Right. That's fair.
I think
whenever I
go ahead.
No, I'm finished.
I was going to say, I think I'll echo some of Russ's sentiments in terms of maybe the reason I felt like he would have been better as a character, part of a group, is because it doesn't feel like there's any gravity to the conflict that's happening in the first issue. And so maybe that's what it is. And maybe that's what we're both sort of touching on there's no, like he's introduced and like, okay, we get to see his powers and all this, but there's no immediate threat to either his existence or the world or, that unsurmountable challenge that heroes like to overcome. You know what I mean? Like at the end, his like arm gets kind of blown away, I guess, but we don't really know what that is. That's the next issue, who's going to be fighting.
Right.
Yeah, I think, there is a lot here that could be done, and it could be done in a really compelling way. Just this particular issue didn't do it. Yeah.
Completely understand. The reason why I chose it was for a couple reasons. For one, it highlighted his intellect, which I really, really appreciate. He has these electro-based powers, and smartly enough, he's done research. He's read books on how to manipulate electromagnetism, how his body works in conjunction with the electromagnetism around him. It's great. It really details. It doesn't go into detail, but it really highlights his intellect. And also, every time I mention Static, aka Static Shock, every time I mention Static, I want to shout out Dwayne McDuffie. Yeah. Every time, the late Dwayne McDuffie. So he doesn't get as much notoriety, but to me, he's kind of like the Stan Lee of Milestone. Now, he wasn't himself the proprietor, and he didn't do the whole thing by himself. He had others, but I just don't find his name mentioned enough amongst circles. So shout out to the late Dwayne McDuffie.
Speaking of Dwayne McDuffie, he wrote a lot of Ben 10. I mean, the series.
I did not know that.
But especially the one where he's a little older, he's not just 10 years old. McDuffie wrote a lot of that. And parallel universes and going to the future. Those are Dwayne McDuffie stories. So if you're interested in seeing his work in animation, maybe go back and take a look at Ben 10, which I think was actually a pretty good series.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I want to say, I apologize for the wiping. If ever you guys are seeing me just wiping the sweat off my forehead. I'm living in Georgia.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're in Georgia, man. It's the humidity. I get it.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right.
So there you go.
All right. My second issue is Niobe. She is Death. This is, what can I say about this series? It's the inception. It's from a little known comic book company itself. I did do my research, I promise. Trying to find the name of the company. But
Stranger Comics.
yes, Stranger Comics. Um, Go check them out. They're not as well known. They're not the big three, but they have some really good gems in there. And this being one of them, Niobe Shia's death. It highlights there's some lore about a person. I don't think she's more of a goddess, but um, the one sort of that would help in a time of crisis, in a time of need. And they're experiencing, the people in this comic, they're experiencing a time of crisis, a time of need. It's kind of like medieval times where you see orcs and you see all these different kind of creatures, and it's prophesized that the one, they don't call her the one, I'm just using that term, but the one would come, and she is death. She would bring death to those who do wrong, but also liberate those who are in need. What do you guys think?
I think that this is really good. So I think I put it in the show notes. I said I'm jealous that Emmanuel brought in a fantasy comic that from a company I've never heard of before, that's done so well. The artwork is freaking amazing. The cover alone, I think, rivals Alex Ross. Like the cover is phenomenal. Like this is fantastic. Um, who? What is the term for the story keeper in African villages? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Riot?
The Riat. So
Yeah,
to me, this feels like a blending of that type of story with dark fantasy, dark Western medieval fantasy. And I think it does a phenomenal job of blending the two feelings. Overall, I thought it was great. I'm going to check the rest of these out. I'm really curious to know about, they sort of illuminate certain things about her that are different, like the two colored eyes, and what is that? What are the implications with that?
Yeah.
Do we get to see any like explicit magic? Because there's like dream sequences where it's sort of alluded that there might be that type of thing going on. Um, yeah, I thought it was really good. Russ, what are your thoughts?
I like the art. I felt like it got better through the book. Like it was better near the end than it was in the beginning. Uh, I like the grand sweeping, like this is a large, very clearly a very large tale that cannot be contained in these few pages that we have. I felt like there were a lot of things that I didn't really understand that weren't quite explained. Like, why are we here now? How did we get here? Was there a time jump? That sort of thing. I felt like there were some things there where I got disconnected a few times through the series, but the parts where I wasn't disconnected, I enjoyed. Uh, this is not a bright color book. This is, not that much apparently takes place during the day, or if it does, it's definitely overcast. Uh, I noticed that. But yet and still, the colors were nicely done in the range that was allowed. Um, I am interested in the main character. I don't feel like I have enough. Like there's one part where she has hair and another part where she's bald. And, did that happen in one panel or did we have a jump? There are a lot of things that if you're interested in the character that is sort of left for you to look deeper, like, or to read more, like the fact that her eyes are different colors, right? Like once her hair is gone, you get a good look that she has ears that don't appear to be human. Is she an elf of some sort?
Right.
And what is her sort of calling, and how did she come to be here, and how did she get captured, and all of that? There's a lot of things that I was like, I had questions going through it that I kept getting stuck at, and I wasn't going to get those. I wasn't getting those answers. So some of that was disconnect for me. But all in all, I thought it was a good book. I think it looked great. I felt that the character, the main character, protagonist, or whatever, was compelling. I got some depth, good work, some good violent death. I like some good violent death. It was provided unto me, and I am appreciative. And you don't really know what she can do other than she can fight.
Yeah.
Does she have any actual powers? Is she a Vulcan? You know, does her talisman mean anything? And what does it represent? None of those questions are really answered, right? You just know she has some kind of destiny to fulfill, and she's just handling how she needs to handle it. And whatever her true reason or motivations apparently won't be really explored in this issue. So I felt like I wanted more. I wanted it's just more like watching from the outside, but not walking with her. I think that's where I felt like I would have liked to have more. Not that this is bad, but I'm really just trying to put words to what was missing for me. And it was more like, okay, I'm watching this happening, but I don't have an identifiable character that I'm really walking towards because I don't really know what her motivations are or any of those things. All in all, good book. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of subtle storytelling that happens in the images. So like you were saying, like she's got hair in one panel and then the next she doesn't. You don't know what happens. If you look really closely, it looks like the old shaman style guy. He's holding like an obsidian blade in the one panel, and she says, "Do it." Well, he's. It's implied that he's cut her hair or shaved her head for her.
That's it. She just went there for a haircut. It seemed like there should be more.
Well, I think it's
You
part.
don't go to a black, white-haired dwarf with a knife to say, "Shave my head." How close are you really going to get? There's no shaving cream. You know what I mean? She got a smooth bald after that. I know a little bit about these things, and you didn't do that with a knife. So that's where I got sort of disconnected, right?
Okay.
Some lotion or something. You can't just be. Where's the nicks on her head? It's smooth as hell. It's smooth as her cheeks. You know, so I felt like, what? Somebody came with a knife and did that? No,
Yeah.
right? Either he's got magic hair cutting powers,
Well,
or
he does carve the mask for her. So.
but even then,
Master
the
Cutter.
magic doesn't hurt. The tree is not screaming in pain or getting cut up, right? If you come at me with a knife, talking about you finna cut my hair, that motherfucker, that's got to be sharp as hell, and there better be some shaving cream.
I do want to note that she is half elf,
Okay.
Mhm.
fully female. They made that distinction, half elf, fully female, in one of the about me pages of her. So I had to include fully female. I don't know why they had to include it, but I had to as well.
What does
Um,
partially female look like?
I don't know. Hermaphroditic. I don't know. But she kind of reminds me of an amalgamation between Raven, because she has some issues with her past, her father. There's a dream sequence where her father's kind of trying to entice her to say, "Are you more like your mother, or are you more like your father?" I know she's kind of a warrior, not kind of. She is a warrior, so there's like a Xena type thing going on. Which, as I say that, I kind of hate it when people make that comparison, because whenever there's an Amazon type figure, there's either Wonder Woman or Xena. Those are the go-to for any
Yep.
comparison. But
I mean, they did it well.
she's
So.
true, true. But yeah, she's kind of an amalgamation in my mind between Raven and Xena. So take with that what you will.
Yeah, for a publishing house, for a studio that I've never heard of before.
Yes,
This
it's
is
different.
yeah, phenomenally well done. Like, definitely gonna check out Stranger Comics and their other stuff.
Awesome.
All right, so those are the 6 issues of the week. I enjoyed the 6 issues. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I did.
Yes. It was good.
We've got some show notes at the end, some questions that we needed to ask each other.
Yes.
Russ, I'll put it up to you. What question did you want to ask us?
Oh, my thing is Bullseye versus Hawkeye. What is it you think Bullseye can do that Hawkeye can't? Just because Hawkeye used a bow and arrow doesn't mean he's not straight with everything.
I think that Hawkeye has the typical hero filters, and Bullseye does not. He's just straight psychotic. So
Remember, Hawkeye started as a villain.
Okay.
Would you classify him as a villain or villain-esque?
No, he started as a villain. He fought the Avengers and later joined them.
Yeah, but
Okay.
he's not like Magneto though. Whereas Magneto has always been evil, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying Hawkeye was just not that evil? Not
No,
like
I don't think so.
so evil. So if everyone has equal tools and skills, evil wins.
Hmm. Maybe. Maybe in certain
Evil has more of an
That
circumstances.
sounds like what
advantage.
you're saying. Right? If you have an evil Superman and a good Superman, evil wins.
What can good Superman do to cat or to trap evil Superman? Evil
Uh,
Superman could clearly put people
I'm
in
gonna go
danger.
spiritual on you. I'm gonna go spiritual. You ready?
Okay, bring it.
When you have a set of rules you must live by, you must find a way.
Mhm.
Right? You must get called upon to do more than you've ever done, than to think of ways that you never thought before. When you're evil, you just do what you feel, right? There's no growth necessary in evil. Evil is just evil. But when you choose a positive path, you're required by your own choices to find a way to surpass yourself, right? Evil doesn't have to overcome. Good must always overcome. So in the process of overcoming, can find things and ways and habits of rising above and
Which
finding
is
solutions that would not normally exist. That's what makes those characters, evil the same evil, right? Bullseye the same Bullseye from day one, right? He's still murdering. He's
just
murdering,
because you have that obligation.
huh?
Just
What?
because you have that obligation does not necessarily mean that you can
Obligation.
accomplish the
Yes,
feat.
yes, you can. You can always do more from making a commitment to be more. You can always, absolutely, you can overcome any shortcomings you have. It showed up in every comic character you ever loved. Spider-Man overcame his own strength. Superman overcame his own powers. Every character you've ever loved has overcome something in themselves because of their commitment and drive to be more and to find a way. Those are the heroes that we love. Those are the heroes that we put our money down for. And every good character, in theory, that is a superhero should be able to tap into that. Even though Matt, and this is the comic book universe. I'm not talking the Emmanuel verse, right? So in the comic book universe, isn't that exactly how, when you look at it, if you look at any good comic book or anything superhero related, the villain is always more powerful, yes?
Yeah, usually.
Initially,
Yeah.
And somehow the good guy has to rise above, and you get to watch it happen and try to figure out, see if you can figure out before it becomes obvious, how is he going to get out of this one? And a good writer gives you that. It shows you how that can happen, right? That's what you love. That's some things you love about comics. But if you just decided that evil just wins because evil is more vicious, then you didn't get to write my comics, homie, because I don't want to live in your universe.
Maybe temporarily. Evil wins
Yeah,
temporarily.
will always wins temporarily. Right. Right. There's a reason why no one has killed Lois Lane, because they really don't want Superman to all of a sudden flip and just go that level.
injustice.
That would
Yeah.
well, yeah, that would be a good comic to see. A villain that murders his parents and Lois Lane in the same issue.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is we're going to stick to the medium of comics. And the question is, do you apply it to your real life? In your own life, are you saying that evil just wins because it's more vicious?
No.
And is this the nature of our nation? Is this the nature of our culture? Because now I go back to the original question. Hawkeye versus Bullseye. Death battle. Who do you have?
I still think Bullseye. Bullseye.
Why?
Because, okay, for me, he's demonstrated more in his short time on panels or in the comics. He's demonstrated more just ability. And I'm trying to compile a list in my mind of instances where he's fought against people.
I
And
think
it wasn't an
everything
easy ride.
Hawkeye has done in the comics too. Hawkeye has fought with outbow and arrow many a times and always unerringly hit his mark. It's just his favorite weapon. And we also got to remember, Hawkeye creates his arrows himself. So he has continuity. He's also trained by Captain America. And even in this book we just read, he has ninja skills.
Yeah.
And yet you still, just because of the viciousness.
You know what I think it is? I don't think that it's that I really think that Bullseye would win. I just don't like Hawkeye as a character that much.
I respect that. I'm willing to end it on that note.
Another in my comic, Hawkeye would lose, and then another superhero would take out Bullseye.
See, no, and that's why you're not allowed to write Hawkeye. It's not.
Yeah.
You don't get him in your Avengers.
Yep, that's what it is. Did everybody read the Tony Isabella slams DC article?
Yes, I did. Tony Isabella has been complaining since Black Vulcan.
Okay.
You know that they were supposed to pay him money to put Black Lightning on the Super Friends, and that was supposed to come out of the comics budget, right? But DC didn't want to pay them, and the people who were making the TV show didn't want to pay extra, so they decided, forget that. We make our own electric superhero.
Okay.
That's also Black. And you'll notice Black Vulcan shows up nowhere else in any comic other than in the Super Friends series. Tony Isabella has been mad since then.
Okay.
And rightfully so. This is just another, he created a great character, right? This is just another salvo. And it's hard to find the right writer to find Black Lightning's voice. You know what I mean? What's the difference character-wise from Black Lightning and the Black Green Lantern? Not powers, character. What's the real difference? If you switched them and switched their powers, would they be acting the same way?
Maybe. I don't know. It seems like his main issue was with the relationships that Black Lightning has.
And these are the things that make it different, but they keep playing with that. It's because Black Lightning has failed to find the level of audience even that Static has, right?
Yeah.
And someone should be able to write him better. So we get different writers that try, and they often come up short. But they keep having to tweak the thing. This is just how it works. And the second thing is he doesn't own a character, right?
Yeah.
He was designed his character for Marvel, DC, excuse me. And I understand from a creative point of view, but Superman isn't even the same character he started out to be. Superman,
right. Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody changes and evolves over time, right? Batman isn't the same character. He doesn't wear high heel boots anymore, etc. But the Flash Man, everyone has changed. And I understand what you as an originator thought the essence of the character was, but it's not your character anymore. He has a good point. I will definitely agree that he has a good point. As for a viewpoint, I agree with his point. However, what are you going to do? Wasn't your choice to begin with.
I feel like if he hadn't said fuck DC, they might have invited him back to write the character.
Fuck years ago.
True, yeah.
There's a whole there's a guy who did a whole bunch of interviews from a lot of Black characters, and he did. He actually interviewed me, but I didn't make the cut. He interviewed Tony Isabella, and same conversation we're having. This is not a new conversation. He's been saying "fuck DC" forever, and whatever they do next that he doesn't like, he's going to say "fuck DC" again.
Okay. Yes.
He just needs to be. And again, his point is valid, but he has no power in this conversation. He has no knowledge. Right? No one is the same. Every character is different from their inception. Right?
Yeah.
Often even Spider-Man's origin. You know what I mean? They still keep the Uncle Ben thing, but there are times when I remember when Aunt May was dead. I remember when Uncle Ben came back. I remember when Uncle Ben, Spider-Man character. There's all kind of, you know what I mean? There's all kind of things they tweak to see what sticks, right?
Yeah.
Cyclops, things Cyclops he was. I can't stand Cyclops now. He is one of the most hated Marvel. For me, he's one of the most hated supposed heroes in all of Marvel Comics. Really dislike.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hickman's drastically changed his character from what Bendis did to the character.
Right. So even then, though, it's still yeah, but you still got to see if he can sustain that, right?
Yeah.
Right now, he's going back to milquetoast. I don't really feel him as powerful, as effective.
No.
I remember, you know what I'm saying? So they basically whitened him out, for lack of a better way to say it, weakened him, right?
Well, his power itself isn't all that either. I mean, it's not, he couldn't split a planet in half with his optic beam.
He's also supposed to be a great tactician, right? He's supposed to be a great field leader. He's supposed to be great at reading people and around here. I remember when Storm beat his butt with no powers and took over the X-Men, right? They turned him to that state.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
And he's no longer relevant.
All right.
If I was the creator of Cyclops, would I be mad? Would I say, what are they doing? Right? When he left Jean Grey and went with Emma Frost, right? Right?
I like that.
I love that pairing. I love them together. I want it to be forever. The hell with Jean Grey. Let her go have Wolverine or somebody.
Yeah.
Right? I want Emma Frost and Cyclops together forever. That is the team supreme. I want them up there. I'm tired of Rogue and Gambit. No. Emma Frost and Cyclops together. Right? Right? Because that's the only man she ever really respected. Right? Can you imagine all the history of them? She could have any man she wanted and mess with their mind. She had sex in his mind, man. She can do everything he wanted in his mind. Right? Jean Grey wasn't doing that. She wasn't. Right? Jean Grey was not putting it down in his consciousness, in his spirit. Right? Together, those two together, and he trusts her, and he can have his back to her, and they can trust each other to do their job. Come on, right? That's Storm and Black Panther right there.
All right. And on that note, gentlemen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it as it come as no shock or surprise to any of you guys. Still not a comic book fan, or still not an X-Men comic book. Wow, still not a comic book fan. Bye, guys.
And I'm only going to say, read more comics.
Share, like, and subscribe.
Isn't that what they say?
Actually, I put the music on a little too early. I cut you guys off.
It's all right.